Okay, so we're going to go over the student self-monitoring form together, and this will include step-by-step instructions on how to begin completing your student self-monitoring form, at least for your English class, but you should be able to apply this to your other core classes as well. Some questions that you have. When we're done taking this first look here, we're going to go ahead and go through your student self-monitoring form and how to fill it out step by step. So you may be asking yourself, why do I have to do this? Part of being an active learner is knowing how and tracking your own learning. This form will help you to see how much you are learning and what scales or standards you need to do more work on in order to master. Okay, how will I know what to put on the form? Your teacher will give you copies of the scales that they will be using to measure your progress in class at the start of each module. At this start of each module, they will review the scale with you, and in class they will help you to fill out the form for the new scale or scales that you will be working on in that module. When will I turn this in? You must turn it in with your red summative assessments at the end of each module, but you should be adding the grades from each green formative to the sheet as you move through the module before taking the final assessment. This is going to help you track your learning. Hopefully, first thing you're going to need to do is know where to find your form. Now, most of the time your form is going to be posted in your lessons. So from your course homepage, go ahead and click on Lessons. Since this is the first time we're talking about the self-monitoring form, I'm going to go ahead and open up Module 1 for my English class, which is where I'm going to find the self-monitoring form. First of all, my teacher asked me to do this on the first day of school as a self-monitoring check. So there's actually going to be two places that I could go to find the form. The first is going to be where I'm going to turn it in at. You can see it says English 1 self-monitoring check, due 9/3. Alright. However, I'm going to go to the main place that it will normally be at, and that's the beginning of my module. So here you can see, I can see part of my module, but I also have this big thing over here on the right hand side so that I can see it better. I'm going to go ahead and click on this double arrow here to go ahead and scoot all of that over so I don't have to look at what I'm not using on that right hand side of the screen. So now I can clearly see Module 1, and I can go ahead and start scrolling down until I find where my self-monitoring form assignment on day 1 of the module is. So for English class, your teacher is going to go ahead and put this down as your day 1 activity for each module that you're going to begin working with, okay? So here you can see it says download the English 1 self-monitoring form and save it to your computer. Click here. When I click here, I'm going to go ahead and right click so that I open it in a new tab just in case. I'm not sure if this is the way it's going to be all the time, but for right now it doesn't seem to want to open the form all the way and give you a preview of it. It shows you this gray screen. So you may be like, well, it's not there. But in fact it is. I'm not sure why it's not giving you the preview, but all you need to do to download it is go up here to where it says File under English 1, and then it'll give you a drop down where you can go to Download. It will then show up, in this case it's showing up in the bottom of my screen, I'll pop that up for you, as English 1 Student Self-Monitoring. So I'm going to go ahead and say always open files of this type. And then I'm going to say open. And then it's going to open up my form for me. First thing you should do, if you haven't already opened one and started messing with it, I want you to go ahead and save it to your computer. Ideally, what you're going to do is have one that you have saved to your computer or to your Google Drive. There will be a video on how to use that later. So that you're constantly updating the same form and you're not redoing this in every single module. Although a blank form will be available to you at the beginning of every module. So once I have that saved, I'm going to actually go ahead and say File, Save As, and I'm going to show you the naming convention. What I'd like you to do is go ahead and click at the beginning of the name that's already there and put your last name, comma, first name, and then I want you to select a place to save it. Usually that will be something like your desktop or Google Drive or somewhere like that. Maybe I thought it was too long there for a minute. All right. And once you have it saved, then you can begin editing, and then just go up and click on this little icon up here to save your work. For those of you who are curious about what that icon is, that is an ancient little floppy disk. All right. So there's a few things that we need to look at in order to understand what the self-monitoring document is asking us to include before we can progress any farther. So we're going to take a look at these boxes real quick. The first one is the learning goal box. This is going to be the overall goal for the standard. Here you can see your English teacher was nice enough to include all of the standards as different tabs at the bottom of the screen. All right, and they're going to ask you to fill them out as you go. So right now we are looking at Standard 1, Acquisition of Vocabulary, only because this is a blank one. The next box is a box labeled What I Need to Know. In this box we're going to include information that's going to help us reach that learning goal. Alright, to the right you'll find a box that says What I Already Know. In this box you're going to include information that you get from your teacher after you've completed your pre-assessment for the standard or module that you're working with. Okay? In here you will include things that you may know from the standard for level 1 and 2, possibly even 3. But we'll take a look at that in just a minute. Underneath that, the second yellow box says, my goal is to be at a level blank by blank. So ideally, your teacher wants everybody to be at a level 3 by the end of a module. Some of your standards you may work with throughout the year, so you may need to make your goals a little bit more broad and say, my goal is to be at a level 3 by the end of the school year. And then underneath that, in this green box, are where you're going to list specific things you're going to do in order to improve so that you can reach your goal. Alright, you also have these columns down here: name of assignment, scale level on assignment, and effort on assignment. So let's first take a look at name of assignment. You'll see that in this column is a list of assignment A, B, C, D, E, and F, and of course pre-assessment. You'll be able to change these to name them by each assignment that you complete in a module for that standard. So we're going to go ahead and change assignment A to notebook, because for English you're going to have a notebook for almost every single module. Alright, when it says scale level on assignment, when your teacher returns the assignment to you, they're going to give you feedback, and they're going to say something along the lines of, please go to your student self-monitoring form for English 1 or Algebra 1 or World History, and in the box next to name of assignment, for example, pre-assessment, please enter this grade for this particular standard. So let's say that you took a pre-assessment for Module 1 and your teacher returned it to you and said, please go back and put a level 1.5 in for your pre-assessment on standard acquisition of vocabulary. When you do that, you'll see it shows a little bar over here on the side to show you where you're at currently. There's also this line up here, this green line. That's your goal, is to get to a level 3. There's also a spot here where you can reflect on how hard you worked on an assignment. And it says please use a scale of 1 to 4, 1 meaning you didn't really try, and 4 meaning you tried your very hardest on this assignment. So on my pre-assessment, maybe I tried a little bit, but not really hard, so I'm going to put in 2. So I know how hard I tried on this assignment. Alright, so let's go ahead. We're going to take a look at Standard 4, because according to your first assignment, you are supposed to fill out Standard 4 and Standard 9 on our spreadsheet for English 1. In order to be able to do this, we actually need to take a look at the scale. So I'm going to go ahead and bring up the scale for us. Alright, when we first open up the scale, which is also linked inside our assignments, we're going to download it the same way we downloaded our self-monitoring form. You'll see it looks kind of like this. This is what your teachers had to turn in to the school administration in order for them to approve all of the standards that we're going to be using to grade you this year. And all of these standards actually come from either the Common Core or the State of Ohio standards. And those are put together by the government or by the state as a guideline for your teachers so that they know what is expected of you by the end of the grade. Alright, so the first one we're looking at is theme. And what we're going to do is we're going to put together this in this video, and we're going to work on filling this out together. Then I would like you to go back and try doing the scale for 9 on your own on your sheet before you try turning this in. So 4 says that we're going to be able to determine a theme of a text and analyze in detail its development over the course of the text, including how it emerges and is shaped and refined by specific details, and provide an objective summary of the text. Wow, that's kind of scary. In fact, it's kind of confusing when I look at this scale. I'm not really sure what I'm supposed to do, and I really wish somebody had put this into better terms for me. Well, guess what? Your English torturer is really nice. And yes, I said torturer because I'm sure most of you feel that way about me. So if you scroll down to page 2, I went a little too far, you'll see that your English torturer was not so much of a torturer. It was actually kind of nice. And put each one of the levels into I can statements. A simple way for you to look at this and say, oh, that's what that means. So let's take a little bit of a closer look here at this rubric that we're going to use for the scales. And each one of your scales is actually broken down into these rubrics for you. So you'll see there's 4 different levels here. Number 1 being beginning, 2 developing, 3 applying, and 4 innovating. And ultimately your goal is to try and get all of your scales to a level 3 where it is applying. Innovating is really kind of a above and beyond situation. That's where you're going to be working above grade level. For example, a theme, the information there in 4 for innovating is actually the 11th and 12th grade standard. Alright, so let's take a look at what it says for beginning. Beginning says I can define the terms, theme, central idea, audience, purpose, tone, chronological order, and so on. For 2, in developing, it says that I can define a simple theme of a piece of fiction or the central idea of a piece of nonfiction, and I can summarize the events of a text. I can also identify the intended audience and the purpose of a nonfiction text. Whereas 3, which is our mastery level, the level we hope everybody will be able to get to by the end of the year, says that I can identify and explain the theme or central idea of a text in detail, and I can explain how it is developed over the course of the text, including how it is shaped and refined by specific details from the text. So let's now go back to our self-monitoring form here and take a look at what I've already filled out here. So for our learning goal up here at the top in the big yellow box, you'll see that I've actually already put in what was in that level 3 box where it says I can identify and explain the theme or central idea of the text in detail and how it is developed over the course of the text. So that is the learning goal. That's the goal that my teacher has for me to meet in order to master that standard. Alright? Underneath that, where it says what I need to know, I've already started filling this out for you. It says what I need to know. First thing I'm going to need to know is the vocabulary of the standard. So, for example, if I were to write out each one, that box is going to get huge, so I didn't. If I were to write out each one, I would include all of the vocabulary that's listed in that beginning box. So, if you guys were in class, I would ask you what you think should else go under there, and you would probably tell me the stuff from level 2, which would be correct. So, I'm going to take a look at this and see if I can break this down into simple terms. First of all, it says I can identify a simple theme of a piece of fiction or central idea of a piece of nonfiction, and I can summarize the events of a text. To me, that sounds like it should be at least 2 bullet points on here. So I'm going to go back to my self-monitoring form, and in the box where it says what I need to know, I'm going to go ahead and include I need to know how to identify a theme or central idea. Alright, and I need to know how to summarize the text. Okay, I'm going to go back one more time to our scale rubric and take a look at the next piece here. It says I need to also be able to identify the intended audience and the purpose of a nonfiction piece. Alright, so let's go back to our self-monitoring form one more time and put that on here. So we're going to say identify the intended audience and purpose. So you see, we still have one little block here left over, and that's okay. We can leave that blank, or we can take a close look at that level 3 and try and figure out what is it that sets that level 3 apart from that level 2. What is the key word here? So I'm going to leave this up to you to try and figure out what do you think is that next step in order to meet that level 3. So when you fill out your form, try and fill that one out as well. Alright, so don't worry about what I already know. Like I said before, we're not going to be able to fill that out until after you've turned in your pre-assessment, because your pre-assessment is there to tell your teacher and you what you already know about a standard. So, on that note, I want you to understand it's very important when you do your pre-assessment, don't use Google. Don't ask other people for help. The point of the pre-assessment is to give your teacher a good baseline, a good beginning idea of where you're already at, so that they know what they need to do in order to get you to that next level and ultimately to a level 3. Alright, so let's take a little bit of a look at this. Once we get our form completed, we can then turn it into our teacher at the end of the unit. But we're going to need to make sure that we've got our goal on here. So I'm going to go ahead and say that my goal is to be at a level 3, and I'm going to say by the end of the year. And I will go out on a limb and tell you right now, guys, theme is a tricky standard. It's a tough one, and it's one that we're going to practice throughout the year. So I'm going to tell you, if your goal is to have this done by the end of the module, great. But don't be upset if you can't hit a level 3 by the end of the module. Theme is going to be a reoccurring nightmare, I guess, for you guys throughout the year. It's going to show up almost in every single one of our modules. So you're going to have lots of time to practice finding theme, explaining theme, and showing your teacher what you know about theme throughout the year. So don't be afraid to say that my goal is to be at a level 3 by the end of the year. Okay? Alright, so now that I've got that filled out, I'm going to think about some of the specific things that I'm going to need to do in order to reach my goal of being at a level 3. So for one thing, I can look at that list of what I need to know and say, well, I'm going to need to learn the vocabulary. That's one thing. And practice summarizing the text. And I see I have a little typo up there, so I'm going to go fix that. Alright. So I've begun to figure this out. And of course I got a typo in there. I was so busy looking at the other typo, I missed a new one. Alright, so now I'm almost ready to turn this in. We're going to go ahead and assume that I filled everything out. It's the end of the unit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to save this, and I'm going to attach it along with whatever assignment I'm turning in as my final assessment for the unit. So for those of you that are doing this for our self-monitoring check, you're going to go ahead and turn in as much as you have completed today, which in this case, I'm going to say, whoop, I don't know if clearing this out is going to work well. Alright, you're going to fill out as much as you need to today. And all you need to today in order to turn this in for your self-check is the first box here, box number 2. You see it's got a little label here, the learning goal. And then I also want you to make sure that you have what I need to know filled out. You're going to do this for English, for Module 1, for Standard 4, which is theme. And we're going to click on this little box here to take us to the end where our writing standards are hiding. And we have to go back one more. And Standard 9, narrative writing. So I helped you do Standard 4 for theme almost all the way. I would like to see you fill out that last little bullet point there, but I'm going to let you try Standard 9 on your own. So take a look at the scale for Standard 9. Go ahead and download that, take a look at it, and see what you need to put in for your learning goal and for the what I need to know. Remember, after your pre-assessment, we'll go ahead and start looking at the what I already know and start making goals together as a team.